Okay, so now that we've done a couple examples of the contouring, one thing I want to do, and this is always great to do, to have the additional line work for it, and I already showed you guys this command before, so this shouldn't be anything new. I'm going to create a new layer and call it dupe border, and I'm going to just select all my surfaces and just do that command exactly, dupe border. So when I turn off my lofted surfaces, you'll see it's gone ahead and duplicated every border of every hyperbolic surface that's there. This will come in handy later when you make 2D of these drawings, because you'll have these outside profiles, and trust me, it's something that's going to be helpful later. For instance, if you had just these ISO curves on and you changed the layer here to red, you can see the ISO curves are analyzing each one of the lofted surfaces, but our dupe borders are showing us the profiles of each lofted surface. So without having those dupe borders, you know, it would be just like this. But like this, it actually helps sort of define the model. Okay, so now that I have the dupe border on there, now the next thing to do is, you know, now that we've analyzed this, now we need to move on to turning it sort of more into a drawing, a representation. Because right now we're just analyzing in 3D or in 3D space, right? So we need to turn these into drawings. And so the way I'm going to do that is by setting a view, finding the right view that I want, and then making 2D off that view. So I don't know if anybody's familiar with named views. Has anybody heard that term before? Maybe a couple. So when you're scrolling around in perspective mode, you can kind of look for a key moment. Maybe this is a nice spot right here. And I'll go ahead and zoom in on it like that. So maybe I really like this view, and I want to keep this view, so that way whenever I want to make an analysis drawing, I always have the exact same view, right? Something that's really nice when you do a portfolio and also do a board, when you're doing an analysis of a model, it's always good to have the exact same view when it's a diagram or an analysis. And for instance, if you look here and you scroll down in here and see this, notice how every single one of these is taken from the same view. And this last one actually kind of looks like it's skewed off that view. And to me, that's bad, right? Because then you're trying to read through this and you're like, wait, this last one doesn't really make sense to me. And it's because it's not in the same view as the rest of them. So when you're doing things that are sort of in this sort of linear fashion, it's good to always have the same exact view for each one of those drawings. And so the way to do that is, let's say if this is the view I want, the command is called named view. And when you hit enter, it's going to bring up this dialog box here. And it says no named views saved. So let's go ahead and save one. So we're going to just use the little save sign, and it's going to allow us to name this. So I'm just going to call this ISO curve view 1. And hit OK. So to make a new one, you want to hit save. And what it's going to do is it's going to save your current view. And then once you name it, which I named mine ISO curve view 1, you'll notice that up here, this no longer says perspective. And now it says ISO curve view 1. So that means if I shift around like that in this view, and I'm like, well, I want that view back again, all you need to do is right click this, and you're going to get this list of things, and you're going to go down to set view, and you're going to choose your named view of ISO curves view 1. And when you click that, it's going to take you exactly back to where you saved it. So I like this view. I want to get a view from the other side now. So I'm going to just kind of flip the model over and grab one from this side. That looks good. And I'm just going to zoom in on it so we're dead center on it. And I'm going to type named view again. And I'm going to save this one as ISO view 2. And so when you have this dialog box open too, just notice that you can double click and it'll change to that view. If you have a lot of views, you can actually set up an animation where it'll scroll through all your views. It'll give you like a really rough animation. It's not really that great, but maybe it could be helpful. Yeah, anyways. So that's how you switch back and forth between views. You can also do it through your set view here, and you see how it starts creating a list of views for you. Now if you want to get back to perspective, all you got to do is click perspective and it'll jump back to its perspective mode, which is your original one. Sometimes it might be nice to change some of your other views here, like maybe you want to change your top view to ISO curve 1 and you want to change your perspective view to ISO curve 2. So now you have both directions there. And when you turn on the dupe border, and let's say we turn on one set of ISO curves there, I'm going to change the model to dark gray just so it's a different color. So now what I can do is I can actually select all that information there. And we're going to do make 2D, which is what I tried to attempt to get us to do earlier.
So I have a question. When we make it kind of like different perspectives, when do we
Okay, so I'm going to make 2D in curve view 1 here. So this time I'm going to say maintain source layer. And it's probably going to make the make 2D take a little bit longer than it would. But I'm just going to go ahead and let that ride. So I'm going to hit OK and let it do its thing. That wasn't too bad. So I'm going to change my right view to actually be top. I know that seems funny, but so if I go ahead and zoom in right here, you can see now I have an analysis of that from that view. And so this right here will serve as a good diagram, right? And maybe it's missing some of the background information, and that's because I have my surfaces on. So if let's say if I turn my surfaces off and I make 2D again, let's notice the difference. So I'm just going to move this down like so. And you'll see this one has all the background information, right? And maybe that's a little bit ugly, or this one is a lot cleaner. So you can see the major differences there, right? So maybe we want a hybrid of something in between these two. And the way to do that is to actually turn back on your lofted surfaces. And we're going to make 2D one more time. This time we're going to click right here and say show hidden lines. So once we do that and hit OK, it's going to take a second. And let's go into top view. And let me drag that one down to here. You can see this one has white, and all that white is what's hidden. And so if we go into our layers over here in the hidden lines, maybe we don't want the ISO curves because it's too much info, but maybe we want the actual building profiles. So then there's that type of information, but maybe you do want the ISO curves, then that information will be there for you. And so once you take this information into, let's say, Illustrator, you could turn those hidden lines, these white ones, and you can set them to be a really fine gray instead of a black. And that way, when you print it, it'll actually recess in the background, and it won't be, yelling at you. Or you could either make it a lighter color, you can make it a really thin line weight, so that way it doesn't print really thick, or you could add a dash line to it. And so there's ways to further manipulate these drawings after you make 2D in Illustrator to help represent sort of what you're trying to show. So I've gone and I've done 3 versions of the same side. So now I'm going to do from this side, and I'm going to do the same thing again just to show you. So I'm going to take the hidden lines off, and I'm just going to show you from the other side. I'm going to move it over just slightly here. So 100 feet. And now I'm going to hide my lofted surfaces and just go through the same exact technique as what I did before. You can see the difference between these. And now I'm gonna make 2D with my hidden lines. So now you can see I took, just from using the same exact ISO curves for every one of these, I was able to do a diagram of different ways that you could actually view your object. You could view it with your lofted surfaces on, and you'll see that these curves right here are predominantly overtaken by your lofted surfaces, so the surfaces, not the dupe border that I did. Here, because I turned off the surfaces, the dupe border took over control. So that's why these are black and not gray. And then here you can see that actually it looks like the dupe border took control there. So you can see the analysis difference from each one of these and maybe what you want to achieve. Maybe you want something a little bit smoother like this with less line work. Or maybe you want something that's a little bit more, shows you the entire model. But to me this is the dirtier version. And then this one is sort of the best of both worlds, where you have the information that's hidden on a different layer set. So you can turn off your hidden information if you wanted to, and it'll actually be the same as the top. Except for you have your hidden info that you can't see from the view. And so that's 3 different ways to make 2D on something. First one was make 2D with the surfaces on. Second one was make 2D without the surfaces, just with curves. And the last one was make 2D with the surfaces, but make sure you have hidden layers to show up in your make 2D. And so from here you can just kind of go buck wild, and maybe you want to turn on another curvature here, and you want to change the color of that one to blue, and maybe you want to make 2D of this. And I forewarn you, the more lines, the longer it takes to make 2D. And sometimes if you have way too much information, you could crash Rhino, because it'll try to make 2D forever, and then you'll click and then it will not respond. And so if you're ever trying to make 2D of something really complex, be sure to save right before you do it. So that case, if it does crash, you're golden. So what I did here is I turned on another set of ISO curves. So now I have 2 sets of ISO curves going here. And so you can see it's taking a lot longer to process the information. And this is what I'm talking about. If I were to click on the screen right now, it would probably not respond, and then I'd be in trouble. I'm glad it's taking that long, because I just wanted to show you guys how long it can take sometimes for something to be made 2-dimensional with the command. And it did it. So now I'm just going to move this over. That's too much. And when I zoom into this guy, if I turn off my hidden, you'll see it has a combination of both lines and the profiles here. So there's a lot of information going on here, and this is actually could be a really, really nice drawing once you take it into Illustrator. And so this is sort of the first steps of what I wanted to show you for doing an ISO curve analysis using contours, naming a view, setting that view, and being able to take it from more than one direction. And then you can start to do your own analysis and choose which one you prefer the most. And then from there you can actually start to use these things to put onto your board. So maybe you want something a lot more complex like this to show. Or maybe you want to do a process where you show this. You show this one with just the blue, not the red, and then you show them together. So what that would be is, let's see here. If I turned off the red, and I think I did this view. So I'm going to select all that, make 2D again. And this will be the last make 2D I do for this video. There it is. So this is just the blue curves, this is just the red curves, and this is a combination of both the blue and the red. So you could essentially lay this out maybe a little bit differently, where you move this to over here. Let me turn on my hidden stuff. Where you move this to over here, and then you move all this information right here, that, and then you could just real simply draw a line that goes like this. Oh wait, that's the wrong view, that's the view right there. Let me go ahead and move this information over. And let me copy this guy this way. Now, one thing I'm not being careful of, which you should be careful of, is the distance that each one of these are apart from each other. So that way when you create your diagram, they're all equal distance from each other. For instance, in this drawing right here, you can see that they're pretty much equal distance. If they weren't, you would really notice it. And so, I mean, these are somewhat close, but you could tell that this space is a lot closer than that one. So just to be more accurate in the future, just make sure you do like whole dimensions when you do these kinds of things. Right now I'm being a little bit messy about it. But let's say, for instance, I draw a line from, I don't know, from here, and just kind of take it across to there. Or I could do it from the outside right here. Now I could use that as a dashed line, sort of what's got going here with these dashed lines. I'm kind of preempting what I want to achieve. Maybe if a better spot would have been this point up here, because it seems to run through. And you notice since it's all the same view, they all take the exact same drawing perspective, and so it's really nice to be able to draw perfectly straight lines. And so here's a diagram of that, and now I'm actually starting to analyze this thing. And let me turn off the hidden information. So I did ISO curves in one direction, and maybe you could do a little small diagram showing, you know, maybe an XYZ if you wanted to, and say which direction you took your contour lines, so the person viewing this knows what you're doing. And then maybe you wanted to show this one. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to do that. But then after that, then now you have the version where it has both of them overlaid on top of each other. And typically you do things from left to right, not right to left like I just did. So these are all real small things that you could do wrong and not even realize it, right? So I went from right to left, which technically you should probably flip it and go from left to right, because people tend to look at things from left to right. So that's just something to keep in mind when you're doing these diagrams. Other than that, this is starting to set up the process of creating a diagram for you.